Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have some real dynasty teams to be looking at here, some real trades to be making, some real dynasty strategy that we need to talk about and how we're optimizing for our specific league format. So, of course, drop a like on this, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, and if you want to get your team broken down on a podcast or a live stream just like this, if you want to get access to all my exclusive Dynasty content and all my Dynasty rankings and all the premium content and rankings of your favorite Dynasty creators, you find all of that on flockfantasy.com. Of course, the link in the live chat, the link in the description, the link in the comment section. Make sure you're using promo code FLOCK. That way you are going to get 30% off any subscription and a 2-day free trial. Plus, promo code FLOCK. That's how you're getting yours truly to go through and break down your Dynasty team. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our first team here from a long-time member of the Flock. Solomon has been here for God knows how long. I mean, he's saying in the chat he's been here since 2020. Definitely recognize that you've had these same profile pics since then, I think, my friend. But nonetheless, thank you so much for being a member of the Flock for so damn long. Going to be super happy to go through, check this team out. Saying, hey, Mason, I've been watching your videos since the 2020 season, and it has been awesome seeing the growth of your channel. It's a 12-team Superflex PPR with IDP, which I know you don't do. I did have a quick little sneak peek on this team in particular. Not a super big IDP league, so we don't really need to go through and talk too much about it. We will in just one second. But this is going to be the 4th year of the league now, and I've won it twice. Oh, dear God. Hell yes. And now I'm looking to win again this year, but I think I need to beef up our running back room. Let me know any moves you think we should be looking to make. Thanks in advance. Now, thank you again, my friend. I mean, I am really happy to go through and check this out. Now, pulling this up, I know the first thing you said, obviously, with this being IDP, let's go ahead and let's look at it. And yeah, I don't play in IDP leagues. To be honest, I've heard they're a lot of fun, but I just have no time left available with everything that we are doing right now. And I just need to focus in on quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight ends. I mean, that is my main job. And if we were to go through and throw individual defensive players in there, then all of a sudden I just would get worse at looking at running backs, wide receivers, because there's only so much time in the day. So yeah, sadly, IDP is not something I am into and probably won't be anytime soon. But in particular, just from an overarching strategy perspective, if you're playing in an IDP league where you only have to start one defensive lineman, one linebacker, one defensive back, and one flex, the starting lineup requirements here are so small that it literally just does not matter. You will always be able to go to the waiver wire and find a player to go and put in the starting lineup. You'll always be able to find a rookie that you like in the 3rd, 4th round of rookie drafts. Now, of course, if you were playing in an IDP league where you'd have to start 3 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, 3 defensive backs, and then a flex or 2, completely different story. Then yes, we do need to talk about it. We do need to focus in on it. Here, it's not necessarily something that matters too much. But let's go over and let's look at what we have on the offensive side of the ball here. So we have Joe Burrow at quarterback and Deshaun Watson in the Superflex spot. So this is a league where, I mean, you are going to have a really strong incentive to go through and build around the quarterback position. Because if you're looking at this, you have 8 total offensive starters in this lineup. So on the offensive side of the ball, 25% of our starting lineup requirements are being made up of the quarterback position. And that is going to lead to about maybe 30% of our starting lineup output on a week-to-week basis being made up of quarterback points. So if you are able to get 2 elite level players, you are just going to be running laps around everyone else. And that your league mates, and including you as well, can only start 3 wide receivers. If you can only start 3 wide receivers and you are lacking that top-end quarterback production, you really don't have any way of going through and catching up, right? Because if you're playing in a league where you can start 3 wide receivers and then you have 3 flex spots, even if you don't have that top-end quarterback production, we can go through and we can build around that wide receiver depth and we can overcome our lack of quarterback production. But here in this kind of format, it's just not possible. I want to grab those elite level QBs, which we have those guys in Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson. Going down to the bench, we even have Bryce Young. So, I mean, this is a phenomenal quarterback room. And in my mind, by far and away, the most important position in this entire league. Now, going over to what we have at running back, we have Christian McCaffrey, obviously a phenomenal win now asset. I mean, right now he's going as the running back 1 in underdog drafts. Javonte Williams, you currently have him, I mean, as a very polarizing player, and that people still believe that he has an elite level ceiling, but obviously a significant injury means that you're probably not going to get to see him at the beginning of the season. Really don't know what you have with Javonte, but going down to the bench, I mean, we should be fine. You have Pacheco, you have Khalil Herbert, so we have the top end production with Christian McCaffrey, and then we have the depth beyond that. Now, I'm definitely not sold on this running back room in the long term. Like 2024, 2025, don't really know how these guys are going to project out, especially at the running back position where it pretty much all just comes down to opportunity. But for this season in particular, I do think that you're in a pretty damn good spot to contend with these running backs. Now, going over to wide receiver, we're currently sitting with Jamar Chase, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson in the starting lineup. And then going down to the bench, I mean, we have Treylon Burks, Jackson Smith, and Jigba down there alongside Godwin and Drake London. So we are loaded with wide receiver depth to an extent where we have 4 guys that we would feel very comfortable putting in our starting lineup down there on our bench. And in general, I'm completely fine rostering these players that can continue to get better and continue to accrue dynasty value on our bench and use those guys as bye-week fill-ins or fill-ins for an injury, right? I mean, Drake London, JSN, Treylon Burks, all these guys can continue to expand their dynasty value, and I think that they're fine having here. But if you're looking at Chris Godwin, this is a wide receiver that it doesn't matter what happens this next year. Chris Godwin will be worth less in Dynasty next offseason than he currently is. I'm sure everybody's heard me say this, but I mean, the way that we go through and run that test on is this guy a contending or a rebuilding asset is if he is the wide receiver 12 this next season, is he worth more or less the next year in Dynasty? Next offseason, when he'll be going into what? I mean, almost year 8 of his NFL career, he will be worth less in Dynasty Fantasy Football in 2024. So with that asset that is almost guaranteed to decline in value, I'm fine rostering it in the case of Christian McCaffrey, right? Where with the CMC, yeah, I mean, we're in a great spot and we can use him to win our league. But in the case of like Chris Godwin, when he's not even close to hitting your starting lineup, there's really no reason in rostering him. Maybe another team that could actually put him in there as a starter and use his 2023, 2024 points, they could actually have some use for him. So what I would really like to do with Christian McCaffrey is with Chris Godwin is I would love to go through and package him together with Javonte Williams and get a running back upgrade. If we could go Javonte and Chris Godwin and get Travis Etienne and get Najee Harris, maybe it sounds like, oh, Mason, why would you trade Chris Godwin and Javonte for Najee? That makes no sense. Maybe it doesn't sound like you're getting the most value for him, but in reality, Godwin's kind of giving you absolutely nothing here with how shallow this starting lineup is and with how dominant this roster is. And when we have this level of, I wouldn't say embarrassment of riches, I mean, you're able to go through and you are able to afford a 2-for-1 overpay like that. And if we're going to be making that overpay, I want to do it with someone that's declining in value, such as Chris Godwin. I mean, we don't need his production. Now, going over to tight end, we had TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson gives you both an elite ceiling in the short and long term. Super excited about that. I mean, going down to the tax squad, not too much we can discuss. We do have our 2024 first, so we are in a really good spot there. We have our 2025 first round pick as well. So just in case, say, Christian McCaffrey were to go down, say CMC tears an ACL this next year, of course, do not want that to happen. I'm not predicting that to happen. We're just saying absolutely worst case scenario, then we would still have enough firepower with that 2024 first. And with how damn good this team is, I would be fine trading away that 2024 first to plug the hole at running back. But there's no way in hell we're trading away that 2024 first until we get to the season. We see exactly what we need. We know exactly what we are buying. And then we just have all that information at our disposal. But overall, love the team, my friend. Like I was saying, I mean, there's not too much I can be discussing here. I mean, it's just a great team top to bottom. Yeah, just definitely go through and try to package together Chris Godwin and Javonte Williams to get a running back upgrade. Or maybe Chris Godwin as well as Isaiah Pacheco to get a running back upgrade. Chris Godwin and Khalil Herbert. I mean, be creative with those packages that you're offering, but I just think it would make so much sense to go through and make a move like that. But again, thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate you being a member of the flock for so damn long now, my man. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be super happy to help you out in any way that I can. But I think that should be it. And before we get to our next team here, we actually have a couple donation questions to answer real quick. This one coming out from Darth Dookie. Hopefully that's how we say this name again. Thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock. Says 10 teams start 8 PPR. We have Joe Burrow, Travis Etienne, Cam Akers, Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, Drake London, Pat Frymuth, JSN. What are your opinions? Any trade suggestions? We don't have many bench assets and we have 3 future first. In reality, if it's a 10-team start 8 league, I don't really care about having too many bench assets. I mean, here it's just going to be a league where we are strongly incentivized to go with a studs and duds approach. So I'm not going to be too concerned about what we are looking at that front. And then on top of this, if we're going to be looking at the actual players that we have with this roster, you have a nice combination of both youth and win now assets, of course. I mean, there's not too much we can be saying at this point. I definitely think we want to go into the season under the assumption that we are a contending team and we plan on winning this year, but I don't want to be trading away those 3 future first until we know exactly what we would need to make sure that we are a contending roster. And also we know where our team stands, because there is an outside chance that hell, maybe Joe Burrow tears an ACL. And of course, not rooting for it. I really don't want it to happen, but if that were to occur, right, Joe Burrow, say, tears an ACL, that tanks the season for Jamar Chase, tanks it for Joe Burrow, and then all of a sudden Akers is getting replaced by another running back in Los Angeles, and we're looking at our team and going, well, you know what, man, I'm not ready to contend this year. It's better off if we just go through and we punt to 2024, and if we already have those 2024 picks, then, I mean, we're going to be in a really good spot. But of course, that's worst case scenario. I think most likely is we just go into the season with this team. If we have a small injury along the starting lineup and you think we can still be a contender, then we go through and possibly look to sell that 2024 first during this season for something once we figure out exactly what we need. But yeah, I don't think you should be looking for the long term with this team immediately. I think plan A should be contending this next season. Now, Chris coming out with the donation. Thank you, my man. Says, would you consider trading Christian Watson in Dynasty? I'm unsure of his value without Rodgers. If you're leaning on trading him, what's fair value? To be honest with you, my man, I'm not looking to go through and trade away Christian Watson. I mean, if I'm looking at the profile, what stands out most to me, and I actually tweeted this out yesterday. Let me pull up my Twitter so I can just make sure that I'm getting this 100% correct. And we had a video about Christian Watson on the main redraft channel yesterday, as well as we talked about him in a video today, is if you're looking at the yards per route run, Christian Watson was number 6 in the NFL this past year. Number 1 for all rookies. You had Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp, and then Christian Watson leading the NFL in yards per route run. So I don't think this is going to be a Chase Claypool situation. Obviously, touchdowns will come down to earth a bit, but I do think he's an incredibly impressive player. I mean, I loved him as a prospect as well. But Andrew coming out says, Garrett Wilson, Dynasty wide receiver 3. Love the content, bro. Thank you, my man. Hell no, I'm going to go CeeDee Lamb as wide receiver 3. I mean, I kind of just tweeted that out as well, saying CeeDee Lamb almost just had 1,400 receiving yards at 23 years old. I feel like it's kind of obnoxious. We don't view him as a truly elite level asset. Like CeeDee Lamb, 23 years old, almost 1,400 receiving yards. I think he has to be the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. But let's go ahead and let's dive into what we have with our next team here. This one coming out from G-Bus. Thank you, my man. Says, hey, Mason, longtime supporter of the flock and glad to see it's getting the success it deserves. Just joined this 12-team Superflex full PPR 6-point passing touchdown, 0.25 point per carry and 0.75 tight end premium league. Pretty happy with how my startup went, but wondering what your thoughts were, as I've never played in this format before, trying to upgrade at running back during the offseason. I mean, I would definitely say the primary thing is if you're playing in a points per carry league, and I've debated this with people for years. I mean, I spent so many hours of my life back in like 2015, 2016 debating the running back value in a point per carry format. But in general, if you are playing in a league that you're getting 0.25 points per carry, these running backs are going to be significantly more valuable top to bottom, right? Because the guys at the very top end, the Derrick Henrys of the world, the Christian McCaffreys of the world, all of a sudden they're going to be averaging an additional 4 to 5 points per game, and they're going to have a larger impact on your expected win rate. But also, as you get to the depth running backs, someone like A.J. Dillon, where maybe you would never consider putting him in there at the flex spot over a wide receiver, if he's going to get the extra 3-4 points per game, given his rushing attempts, then all of a sudden those running backs that were previously just depth guys actually become players that we're putting in the starting lineup in those flexes. So in general, in point per carry dynasty leagues, I am trying to build around running back, running back, running back. There's also another adjustment that we need to be making that not as many people think about. Everybody knows, okay, running backs will be more valuable. But one thing that people overthink just a bit is if you're looking at the quarterback position, those guys like Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Josh Allen, maybe even Trey Lance, those guys that are going to rack up rushing attempts, all of a sudden, they are going to get a significant edge as well. Because if you're looking at Lamar Jackson, if he goes out there and has 10 rushing attempts in a single game, that's an additional 2.5 fantasy points. If you translate that to passing yards, he's getting like an extra 50 to 55 passing yards just on the carries, not on the rushing yards, not on the rushing touchdowns, just on those carries. So in general, point per carry league, we're looking to build around running back. We are looking to build around rushing quarterbacks as well. We're currently sitting with Joe Burrow in the starting lineup. And of course, Joe Burrow is a phenomenal option, right? Now, I will say in a vacuum, if we can maybe move off of Joe Burrow and get somebody who can run the ball a bit, that would be something I'd be interested in. Like say, hypothetically, right? You could go through and you could sell Joe Burrow and in return, you could get back Anthony Richardson plus, let's just say you could get Anthony Richardson plus another elite running back, maybe Breece Hall. That would be a trade that honestly I wouldn't really consider in a regular fantasy football league. But if you think Anthony Richardson can rack up 120 carries his rookie season, the points per game gap that you may get between Burrow and a player like Anthony Richardson isn't as large as what you would initially assume. And then if you're going to get Breece Hall potentially as a 3-down workhorse, then all of a sudden, Breece Hall is a fundamental cornerstone asset to your dynasty team in a league like this. So can y'all please let me know in the live chat here? I mean, we have a little over 100 people watching this. What you're thinking. Don't think about it in the context of this being a point per carry format. If you were just playing in a regular league, what would you rather have? Would you rather have Joe Burrow or Anthony Richardson and Breece Hall? Please let me know what you're thinking here. I mean, I just want to make sure that we are kind of in the same ballpark because a lot of people will understand to bump up the value of those running backs, but not a lot of people will think about bumping up the value of those quarterbacks. And sometimes you can kind of get a discount by going through and taking the rushing QB. But yeah, we have people out here saying Joe Burrow. We have some people saying Breece Hall and Anthony Richardson. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely think in the point per carry format, I'm going to go with those two options, especially as we look through the rest of this roster, right? I mean, we currently have Burrow, Deshaun Watson. Watson's also someone that we could look to sell in a similar type deal, of course, obviously. Don't know if you'd be getting a Breece Hall level player in return, but still, same thought process, right? We're selling like Watson and getting back Anthony Richardson, someone who can rack up carries, and then an extra running back we can feel comfortable about starting. So if we're looking at those QBs, I think we're in a good spot as is. Of course, I'm just trying to nitpick with the specific league format that we are going to have. Going over to running back, we have Dameon Pierce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Down there in the flex spot, we have James Cook. And then going down to the bench, I mean, we have Deontay Foreman, Devon Achane. In general, another adjustment that I'm going to be making is if you're looking at these passing down running backs, in a point per carry league, like Devon Achane, not necessarily someone that I am excited about at all. Like, if I'm going to be honest, I would easily take Kendre Miller over him. I would easily take Roschon Johnson over him in this kind of format. Because with Miller, with Roschon, it's possible that those guys end up getting to a point where they're seeing 15 to 20 carries on a per game basis. And if you have that type of upside, you can truly be a league-winning player in this kind of format. Whereas the James Cook of the world, the Devon Achane, where we're already concerned about their size, both of them having a BMI of 27.8. If you're looking at the point per carry aspect of this and them not being able to be a 3-down back, it is extra concerning, to be honest. So those would be guys I would look to maybe pivot off of for some different running backs that are in a similar range, right? But it can actually just go through and have a bigger frame overall. Going to wide receiver, we have Higgins, London, Hollywood. I mean, going down to the bench, we don't have too much we can be looking at either. At tight end, we have George Kittle. Now, of course, it is a 1.75 points per reception for the tight end league. I mean, definitely this is about to the point where we can say, okay, yeah, tight ends are interesting in the flex spot. 1.5 point per reception, not too big of a difference. But yeah, once you get to 1.75, then at that point, it is like, okay, yeah, we can go through and we can strongly consider flexing these guys. So Kittle should get that massive bump up in value. However, in general, I don't know if this team's ready to compete right now. If this team wanted to truly be competitive, we would have to go through and we would have to today sell our future picks. And if you find yourself in a position where before any injuries occur, before anything happens, and you're saying, yeah, I mean, man, I really don't have enough running back firepower. I don't have a lot of wide receiver depth. And we freaking have Michael Carter, James Cook, and Gabe Davis as our three flexes. If you find yourself in that spot, the last thing I would ever want to do is start selling future draft picks. So in reality, I think this is a team that's honestly probably better off going through and looking to punt for 2024, especially if we can tear this ship down, go through and sell some of these veterans, sell George Kittle, sell Hollywood Brown, maybe even see what we can get for Dameon Pierce. Accumulate as many 2024 first rounders as we possibly can. Lock in Caleb Williams with the 101 in next year's draft. Because if you're looking at a quarterback that has rushing upside, bringing him in, he will be an immediate difference-making player for a roster like this. So personally, that's what I'd be looking to do. I don't think we have enough firepower to compete this year. So I think we would go ahead and look to sell some of these veterans, try to see what we could get for the long term. But I do really hope that was able to help you out, specifically talking about the league format there, which is by far and away the most important thing to be focusing in on with this breakdown. And then also, I will say as a quick side note, my friend, I know you're on flockfantasy.com. I know you're a mother flocker, so thank you so much. So just head over to the draft guide section that we have. I wrote a 100-page Dynasty research book that's on there. And there we have an entire chapter in adjusting to point per carry leagues. We have an entire chapter adjusting to 1.75 tight end premium formats as well. So yeah, I think you can find a ton of good information there that will really help you out with this league. We also have an entire chapter on how to rebuild your Dynasty roster. Now, our next team we're going to be looking at, coming out from Roofy. Thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I'm going to be super happy to go through, check this one out for you. Saying it's a 12-team Superflex, half PPR, 4-point passing touchdown. I'm looking to make the following trades, or should we just go ahead and stick with our picks? Okay, so you sent this yesterday. I mean, about at 6:35 p.m. It's literally 6:35 p.m. So you sent this 24 hours ago. Hopefully, these are going to be the same trades that we're looking at. Before we actually look at the deals, I want to instead get an overall sense of both this team as well as the starting lineup requirements. So, I mean, we're sitting at quarterback right now with Sam Howell, QB1 overall in Dynasty, Trey Lance, Marcus Mariota, Zach Wilson, Kyler Murray. Okay, so we essentially have Kyler Murray, Trey Lance, and Sam Howell here. Long term, I think we're probably going to be in a fine spot once Kyler Murray is back from his injury. I still believe in Trey Lance. I still think that Trey Lance can be a low-end QB1, high-end quarterback 2 in fantasy, given the rushing upside. Sam Howell can be a fine guy to start in the short term until Kyler Murray comes back. I mean, we could definitely add in another quarterback, but it's not like we have to. It would just be nice. Going over to RB, we have Taylor Swift in the starting lineup. Going down to the bench, we're sitting with Tyler Algier, Isaiah Pacheco, so we have fine running back depth. Wide receiver, we're sitting with Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Drake London, Rashad Bateman. Down there on the bench, I mean, we don't really have much at wide receiver currently, but we do have Jamison Williams. Tight end, we have Andrew. So overall, what I want to point out with this team is we have depth on depth on depth. I mean, in general, once we are going through and adding in these players at pick 6, at pick 9, at pick 10, I mean, these are going to be guys going to an already extremely deep roster where maybe we're in a position where we can afford to make some 2-for-1 deals, right? We can afford to upgrade in the starting lineup, but let's go ahead and look at these trades that you're talking about. Trade 1 is to send DeAndre Swift and receive the 104, in parentheses, Anthony Richardson. I don't necessarily know if you're going to get Anthony Richardson at the 104, my friend. Maybe you have a better read on your league than I do. I would assume that the majority of leagues, you're going to have Anthony Richardson going at either pick 2 or pick 3. But yeah, I mean, I would love to go through and I would love to make this deal, regardless of if you're getting Anthony Richardson or not. I don't know if you had the chance to read the article that we put up on the site. I want to say maybe a week ago at this point, or maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't exactly know when, but essentially saying to sell DeAndre Swift for reasons X, Y, and Z. I definitely encourage you to go check out that article. And I would have sold DeAndre Swift for pick 5. I would have sold DeAndre Swift for pick 6. I would have sold him for pick 7. I would have sold him for pick 8. Like, I would sell DeAndre Swift for a pick that's worth way less than this. If you're able to get the 104, it is a no-brainer, especially on a team that, I mean, hell, you could possibly get a quarterback. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a deal that you can actually make. If it is, that's great. If not, I mean, hell, I'd be willing to lower your bar and send out DeAndre Swift to the owner of every pick that we just mentioned. Now, going over to trade 2, I trade the 204 from trade 1. Oh my gosh, you're asking for a second there as well. Isaiah Pacheco and Claypool or Joshua Palmer. Okay, so Claypool, Joshua Palmer are literally nothing. So we trade the 204 and Isaiah Pacheco and receive the 107 and 207. So 204, 207, honestly, kind of the same thing. It's just one massive flat tier that you have in the second round there. So, I mean, it's essentially Isaiah Pacheco for the 107. The 107, you're going to be looking at either Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston, whoever you prefer. And yeah, I would definitely rather have one of those wide receivers, regardless how this roster currently looks, over Isaiah Pacheco. So yeah, I would be completely fine making that deal. Now, trade 3, you're saying a guy has the 101, 103, and 105 and is looking to take Bryce Young at 101 to guarantee the 102 doesn't take him. Okay, well, this guy has lost his mind. The current trade discussions are this. I get the 103, which is Bijan Robinson. You cannot convince yourself that it's Bijan Robinson. Maybe this guy's trying to swindle you. Maybe he's going through and going, hey, man, I mean, I don't know if you heard, the rumor on the street is we actually have CJ Stroud, Bryce Young going off the board at pick 1 and 2. I mean, you're not going to believe this, but if you trade for pick 3 right now, I can tell you that you're getting Bijan Robinson. Don't buy it, my friend. We're just valuing it at the 103. We're valuing it as one of those quarterbacks in that range. But anyway, going back into this, you get the 103 and the 201. He gets the 107, the 110, the 205, Jameson Williams, Zamir White, and Marcus Mariota. Okay, so one thing that I do want to just establish real quick with pretty much everybody in the live stream, especially with this team, whenever we're looking at a massive deal like this, right, where you're talking about moving some monstrous pieces, like you're moving the 103, we're moving multiple first-round picks. Guys like Zamir White and Marcus Mariota are garbage. They have legitimately zero, and I repeat, zero impact. The analogy I could give to this is like, hey, man, I'm going to trade you my Ferrari for your Lamborghini, but throw in Zamir White, a.k.a. the little smelly thing, the little smelly tree that hangs from the thing. It doesn't matter at all, okay? Completely ignore that. Do not let that cloud your judgment. So if you're even typing out a deal like this, just scratch those small pieces off when they truly don't even matter. So essentially, you get the 103 and the 201. He gets the 107, the 110, the 205, and Jameson Williams. So if we're moving from the 110 to the 201, in reality, there's not that big of a difference for me. Like if we're going from the 110 to the 201, you're going to be looking at the Zach Charbonnet, Dalton Kincaid, Will Levis, all about in that range. You don't really know who you're going to get, but I mean, you're probably going to get someone you're fine with. It's not like the 110 is super exciting. So not a big deal there. Essentially trading away Jameson Williams in a second to move up from pick 7, which will most likely be like Quentin Johnston, for the 103, which will most likely be like either CJ Stroud, Jahmyr Gibbs. I know you're saying it's Bijan Robinson. Maybe he's telling you it is. He's lying. Do not believe him. If it is true, he's an idiot, okay? There's no reason that Bijan Robinson should be falling to 3. But yes, I would go ahead and I'd probably make this deal. Specifically with this team where we have so much depth, I'm completely fine going through and trading up to get pick 3, regardless of who's going to be there. Now, trade 4, we trade the 109. I'm not high on Zay Flowers at all and already have Andrews and Bateman, and I received Jared Goff. I think it is a fair price point for Jared Goff, and I agree with you. I'm not too high on Zay Flowers either. But in general, if we're going to go back to this team, right? So if we put ourselves in this position where we have the 103 and the 104, I understand, like, maybe we're saying we're going to end up coming away with Bijan Robinson at pick 3. I don't buy it. But just say pick 3 and pick 4, we're going to come away with a combo of Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, right? We get Bryce Young, or Bryce Young, or say CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. We get Stroud and Richardson, and we're adding that to a quarterback room of Kyler Murray, Trey Lance, Sam Howell. Jared Goff does really nothing for us at that point. We'll already have 4 starting quarterbacks. So, I wouldn't make that last deal. I'm completely fine if you wanted to go through and sell Zay Flowers. I'd just be looking for a little bit more in return, my friend. But overall, I really like the majority of those trades, and I would be really happy to go through and make them. In terms of making any other moves, there's not too much to be discussing. I do want to just point out that this team doesn't have its 2024 first, so you're kind of pot committed into going through and trying to build right now. And specifically for that reason, if you come away with the 104 and you have a decision to make between CJ Stroud or Jahmyr Gibbs, and we already have, say, Anthony Richardson, which we added on at pick 3, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if you wanted to take Jahmyr Gibbs over CJ Stroud. In the vast majority of leagues and in my own rankings, I'm going to have Stroud over Gibbs. But specifically with this roster, specifically with the fact as well that we don't have our 2024 first, so we're looking to contend immediately, I think that could be something we're looking to do. Okay, but let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team here. This one coming out from KBR. Thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. Going to be super happy to go through, check this one out for you. It is a 12-team, 1 quarterback, start 8, no tight end premium. We finished second last season. It's a 4-point per passing touchdown. We sold Joe Burrow for the 101 and 201 in the offseason. I've been offered the 102, 103, 202 for Bijan Robinson and would probably end up taking Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson in the second round. Okay, so in general, if we're going to be looking at this, obviously it's very different being a 1 quarterback format in comparison to it being a super flex league. Here, if we're selling Bijan Robinson for the pick 2 and pick 3, you're essentially selling Bijan Robinson for Jahmyr Gibbs as well as Jackson Smith-Njigba, which sounds like an incredible haul, right? Very, very, very rarely will you ever be in a rookie draft and be able to go through and sell the 101 for the 102 and 103. I'd say most years you do that without thinking about it. It's a little bit difficult here for a reason we're going to get to in just 1 second. But you're saying, I have also received Jalen Hurts and the 107 for Bijan Robinson. I would definitely rather have the 102 and 103 in a 1 quarterback format. Obviously, quarterback is a team need now with Burrow gone. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the team and potential trades. Feel free to use on YouTube. Thank you so much again, my man, for supporting the channel. So first thing first, let's go ahead and let's talk about the overall league format that we have here. So the main thing I want to be pointing out is that this is a pretty shallow lineup in general, where we're starting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, as well as 2 flex spots. So it's a start 8 league, and we are only starting 7 skill positional guys. So if that's the case, we are highly incentivized to build around studs, studs, studs. And because of this incentive, my initial thought is, you know what? We're probably much better off just going through and taking Bijan Robinson. But it gets to a point, right, where if you're getting both Jahmyr Gibbs and Jackson Smith-Njigba added to this team, it is such a good haul, especially if you really want a quarterback and you strongly believe you can get either Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson at the beginning of the second round, that we would also pick up, say, Bryce Young, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jackson Smith-Njigba for Bijan Robinson. While, of course, hook 'em horns, I love our guy Bijan. It's difficult for me to say not to take that deal. Can y'all please spam the chat right now? Who would you rather have with this team, right? Quarterback, obviously, is a massive team need. Right now, we just have Desmond Ridder and nobody else. Running back, we're currently sitting with Barkley Chubb, but we would be able to add in Bijan Robinson if we kept the 101. We have Tyler Algier as his handcuff. Wide receiver, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore. So definitely a team built to win this season. We don't have another wide receiver we can feel comfortable with, however. But keep in mind, whenever we go through and whenever we take Bijan Robinson, then we go ahead and we slide down Nick Chubb to a flex. So we slide down, say, DJ Moore to the bench. So we do have more than enough depth to go around. Then we have George Kittle at tight ends. We have Dawson Knox. I'm fine with what we have at tight end, but look at all these picks that we have. And this is why, honestly, I may be fine just holding on to Bijan Robinson. And in the chat right now, we're having a couple answers. Bobby says easily Bijan. Ryan says the picks. Scott says Bijan. Connor says the picks. So you have a couple people going back and forth with this, right? Well, let's look at both options. Option A, we don't make the deal. Option A, we stick with this team. We take Bijan Robinson at pick 1. We add in Bijan Robinson at 1. We slide down Chubb to a flex. We slide DJ Moore down to the bench. And we are in a great spot. We have more than enough depth. And we have the top end talent for a shallow overall league. Then at the same time, at pick 4, of course, operating under the assumption that both Jackson Smith-Njigba as well as Jahmyr Gibbs are already off the board. Pick 4, we're going to be able to bring in Quentin Johnston. Johnston going down to the bench as well is just going to give us additional wide receiver depth, not only for this season, but also in the long term. And obviously we have, a hole at quarterback, right? We could definitely go through and look to address the position. Now it's a 1 QB format, however, so should be easy for us to do a couple different things. First off, I know you were saying possibly going through and trading for that 202, which would allow us to go through and take Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson. Since we're currently sitting with the 201, my man, I think you have more than enough flexibility to take a rookie quarterback with this pick. Even if Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson were to go beforehand, I would still be fine going through and either taking CJ Stroud. And if you didn't really want to take CJ Stroud there, instead, you could possibly go through and you could look to trade the 201 for a different veteran quarterback. I don't know the exact price point of quarterbacks in this league, but maybe the Daniel Jones owner has 2 to 3 starters he's extremely confident about. Maybe Daniel Jones is quarterback 3, and we're able to go through and trade the 201 and the 211 and get a guy like Daniel Jones. Like, we should be able to easily find a QB2, QB3 on someone's roster that they're not using and make a play for that player in particular. On top of this, one thing that I want to point out is the fact that we don't have our 2024 first, and we don't have our 2025 first as well. So we are highly, and I repeat, highly incentivized to win over the next 2 seasons. And I'm not really too interested in trying to build for the long term right now, right? Because once you sell your 2024 first, once you sell your 2025 first, you are pot committed to winning this season. So I would much prefer to go through and take Bijan Robinson, the player that is going to be hyper productive over the next 2 years. With Bijan Robinson, this is a running back that is currently going as the running back 2 in best ball leagues, only behind Christian McCaffrey. Really help us win. Try to see if we can get one of those quarterbacks falling to us at the 201. In reality, if we take Bryce Young 201, I'll immediately be looking to sell Bryce Young for a veteran quarterback that will produce for us immediately. Especially with this team, I definitely think that we need to go through and get an option that's just comparable to Daniel Jones, right? We don't need to go out there and pay an extreme premium for Jalen Hurts, but just someone that we can feel comfortable starting with on a week-to-week basis. But I think that's overall all we have to say. I do need to go back and just give you once again a massive, massive congrats on selling Joe Burrow for the 101 and 201. Whoever gave you the 101 for Joe Burrow is clearly showing us there's a reason why they had the 101. There's a reason why they finished dead last in the league. You are able to just be in a phenomenal spot there. But again, thank you so much for everything, my friend. Congrats again on the phenomenal team. And yeah, I do think that while it's a great price point to sell Bijan Robinson, and if it was a super flex league or if it was a deeper format, I definitely would. Specifically in this format, specifically with this roster, I think maybe it makes sense to just go through and hold on to Bijan there. But thank you again for everything, my friend. Real quick, we have a donation coming out from Gucci Broomstick. Thank you, says, Hey, Captain Flock, quick question on a rebuilding team with really no strengths at any position. Would you look to trade Kyle Pitts in a 0.5 tight end premium format? So Kyle Pitts going into year 3, obviously this past year was a really bad situation in Atlanta where they were the second worst passing offense in the NFL, only ahead of the Chicago Bears. I mean, Atlanta was really, really bad this past year with their passing volume. Now, the difference between looking to go through and, in my mind, selling a player like Kyle Pitts versus where we're saying, okay, well, another very bad passing offense in Chicago, right? We're looking to sell the pass catcher there. We're looking to sell DJ Moore there. What's the difference between selling DJ Moore or versus selling Kyle Pitts? Well, the situation can change through the course of Kyle Pitts' NFL career. Kyle Pitts is an ascending asset. He is younger than Zay Flowers. However, if you're looking at another player that's like going into his 6th season like DJ Moore in another really bad passing situation, there, in my mind, it's probably making sense to sell him, especially if we are a rebuilding team. However, specifically with a rebuilding roster with a tight end that was the best tight end prospect of all time, arguably puts up one of the best rookie tight end seasons of all time, I really don't have any interest to go through and sell Kyle Pitts. If you were a contending team, maybe. But on a rebuilding team, no, I'm going to be holding him. Okay. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team here. This one coming out from Showbiz. My man, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I'm going to be super happy to go through and check this team out for you. You're saying it's a 12-team, 1.5 tight end premium, full PPR. Recently traded Devonta Smith, the 108 and 2024 first. Oh, for Devonta Smith. Oh, okay, never mind. To be honest with you, my friend, this is not necessarily the type of deal that I am looking to make. I think the video that we recorded that will come out tomorrow will help illustrate this and help dive into overall trade strategy a little bit more in depth. But generally, I want to be the guy selling the premium wide receiver, moving back, especially in a super flex format, picking up a wide receiver that we today think is worse and an extra 2024 first. I mean, we go through and look at so many historical examples of this and really dive in deep in the video that comes out tomorrow. But I think I would just personally rather be the guy with Quentin Johnston and the 2024 first over Devonta Smith, even if Smith is a phenomenal player. And like I said, we'll talk about that a little more in depth in the video tomorrow. And obviously took Bijan Robinson and JSN in the draft. I had the 103 and traded back to the 104, picking up a 2024 first so they could draft Anthony Richardson. Hell yes, love that, my man. That's what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to move back and pick up that extra first-round pick. But currently I have 3 2024 first, with 2 of them I am certain will be top 4, and a great chance one of them are number 1. Hell yes. Curious to hear your thoughts on the direction we should take our team. FYI, I earned the 101 outright after Breece Hall got hurt. Thanks. I love your work and appreciate everything you do. You may use this for YouTube. No, thank you so much again, my man. And that's one thing that I have noticed is it seems like so many teams in Dynasty have both Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, given the fact that Breece Hall obviously goes down for the season. That, I mean, it's almost unfair at this point for a lot of other people in your league. If you're adding Bijan Robinson to play next to Breece Hall and you have the number 1 and number 2 running backs in Dynasty, it is just an extremely strong spot. And honestly, I need to tweet this out. I mean, I've been telling myself to send out a message like this, but it is something that I'm seeing in every league. Okay, nothing is more unfair than the Breece Hall owner earning the 101 in his rookie draft just to pair up Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson for years to come. And we'll save that. We'll save that as a draft. But anyway, going back through this, I'm super sorry about that, my man. But yeah, you have the number 1, number 2 overall running backs in Dynasty. Hard to get more unfair than that, especially if you're looking at the fact this is a shallower lineup in general. I mean, right now you're going to be starting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a super flex. So I mean, you only have 9 starters, right? So if you're looking at running back, I mean, running back, quarterback, that's going to be what I'm looking to build around in this kind of format. Wide receiver depth's not going to matter too much when we can only start 4 of these guys. I mean, at quarterback, we're currently sitting with Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. So we have 2 top 10 quarterbacks in Dynasty, and we have so much flexibility on what we're able to do with these guys, of course. I mean, if we have both Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, we can feel very comfortable about either building for this next season or building for the long term. Really, whatever we want to do. If we want to be a contender this year, we can go for it. If we want to punt to 2024, we can go for it. Looking at this team in particular, because we sold our 2024 first, it looks like that's not necessarily something we're going to be looking to do. However, I mean, it looks like we're pretty much just going to be going all in for 2023 with this roster. And I know you're asking, like, which direction should we be taking this team? Even if we have very high rookie picks with the other owners, those rookie picks are going to be very high no matter what with what we do with this team. So given that fact, we are highly incentivized to try to go out there and win this bad boy right now. Now, going over to running back, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson obviously give us a lot of flexibility. These are assets we can contend with right now. These are also assets that we can look to build around for the long term. Looks like we have no running back depth after this. So it's really going to be dependent on the health of Breece Hall and if Breece Hall is actually going to be good to go at the beginning of the season. I mean, if he is, then we should be in a really good situation overall. I mean, I think that Bijan will step in and immediately be a running back 1 in fantasy. Now, the big thing is should we trade for another running back? Well, I understand the thought process on how we should do this. I don't necessarily think the right time to do it is now. Going back to what we were talking about where I wasn't in love with that Devonta Smith selection, I mean, that trade, I don't necessarily want to be selling our 2024 first today. I would rather be accumulating these assets. That way, during the season, when we know exactly what we need, we can go through and we can cherry pick productive veterans when we know who's producing from rebuilding rosters. Because there will be a team in your league that thinks that they're a contender and they go into the season and they start off 1-4 and all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, I got to sell Saquon Barkley off for anything. And then we can go through and trade a late 2024 first for Saquon Barkley. Now, going over to wide receiver, we have Devonta Smith, Deontay Johnson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Brandon Ayuk. Going down to the bench, we have Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Jacoby Myers, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sky Moore. We have more than enough wide receiver depth to go around, right? I mean, most likely the majority of these depth wide receivers are probably not going to do anything for us this next year. More likely than not, the majority of Kayshon Boutte, Marvin Mims, Sky Moore, Wan'Dale, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Jacoby Myers aren't productive players in 2023, but we don't need them all to be. We just need 2 to 3. I mean, hell, if you have both Elijah Moore and Wan'Dale Robinson producing this next year, you're in a great spot. If you have Elijah Moore and Rashad Bateman, or if you have Bateman and Wan'Dale, if you just have 2 of these group of guys actually producing for us this next season, we'll have more than enough depth to go around, given the fact that it is a shallower starting lineup in general. Now, going over to tight end, I mean, we're currently in a spot where we have Greg Dulcich, and in my mind, honestly, at this point, I feel like he's a little bit disrespected. If you're looking at what you're getting from year 1 tight ends across the board, you really never see these guys play early on. This is a player that didn't really project as the starter, and he had to kind of overcome. He had to beat out Albert O. Of course, Albert O dealing with an injury as well. But nonetheless, for him to be able to step up and be productive in a horrendous situation in Denver this past year, I'm completely fine having Dulcich as our guy, especially if we're looking at this league where, I mean, you don't have to start 2 tight ends. It's not like it's a 2-point tight end premium format. It's nothing crazy here. Now, looking at the tight end depth, we don't really have anybody. I mean, hopefully Irv Smith Jr. can be something. I mean, Irv Smith Jr. is another example of a rookie tight end back in 2019 that I thought was going to be exciting, never turned into anything, and maybe one of the many reasons why I'm burnt on taking rookie tight ends at this point. But overall, I think this is a strong team. I definitely am going to be planning on trying to contend with this roster this next season. It's just, how do we do this, right? Is the plan to do this going through and selling our 2024 picks today? I don't necessarily think so. Maybe we have to change our mind here if we get to week 1 and Breece Hall is somehow on the PUP and all of a sudden we're going, hey man, if I want to have any shot this season, I have to go through and I have to trade for a running back. Then at that point, maybe we look to sell that later 2024 first round pick that we have and maybe go through and add in someone like Nick Chubb. But in reality, I would rather just wait and see what this team actually needs, because those 2024 first round picks, I mean, if we have 3 of those, especially if 2 of them look very high, it's just like we have a savings account stacked up, right? I mean, we just have so much money in our savings account and we can go out there, and the season is a road trip. We don't really know what's going to happen. We're driving from LA to New York, but if we have that money in our savings account and something goes wrong, we pop a tire, aka we lose a running back, then we're able to dip into that savings account and we are able to go through and replace what we are missing with an asset that we know is actually producing. So just please don't be selling those 2024 picks today, even if we look to be a contender. Please wait until we get to the start of the year, because there's also always the outside chance that something goes devastatingly wrong, where Lawrence tears an ACL, where Bijan has a high ankle sprain, and all of a sudden we go, okay, good thing we did not trade away those 2024 first. But again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel, my man. I really hope that we are able to help you out. Really hope that we are able to give you something here. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. And that goes for everybody here, of course. Please, if there's anything I can ever do for y'all, do not hesitate. Reach out to me. Let me know. Thank you so much for everything. Really do appreciate y'all. We're going to end this here. That way I can go through and take this off, stop sweating, and actually just record some podcasts breaking down these teams. But yeah, of course, if you want a podcast breaking down your Dynasty team, if you want it to be on this live stream, you can find all of that on flockfantasy.com. Sign up for flockfantasy.com with promo code FLOCK. You're going to get a 100%, you're going to get 30% off any subscription. And on top of that, with promo code FLOCK, that's how you're getting your team broken down on a live stream like this. But thank you so much. Really do appreciate you all. Really hope you have a great day. And yeah, I'll see y'all with a video tomorrow.